Hi everybody, welcome to the re-debut of my audio commentary, Standing Room Only. I originally started this as a written blog commentary back in 2001. I did that for a few years and then I switched it over to an audio commentary back then, shortly after that. And then I just basically stopped doing both for no real reason really. So I decided to bring it back. I don't really have a set topic that I'm going to discuss. Obviously it's going to be pretty heavy about professional wrestling, but I'm open to talking about other subjects and topics. I'm a big TV and movie guy, so I'll talk about that from time to time, and pretty much anything that's on my mind. First things first here, this Friday night in Stratford, PEI, 7 p.m. bell time, Red Rock Wrestling is having its second card of the year. On this card, you're going to see Lincoln Steen defend his Red Rock Wrestling Heavyweight Championship against PEI's own Cowboy Mike Hughes. Steen won the title on a Red Rock Wrestling card towards the end of 2014 and has been defending it ever since. Cowboy is looking to regain what he believes is his Red Rock Wrestling Championship. Also on that card, you'll see Sexton Phoenix tagging up with Voorhees, taking on the team of the Big Pitcher Chris Cook and Titus. Also on this card, you're going to see the Monster Brody Steele. And making their Red Rock Wrestling debuts are going to be Wesley Pipes and the High Flying Fantana. Two great additions to an already stacked roster of talent. You can get tickets in advance at Finley's Diner and Dairy Bar, as well as Naturally Fit PEI. Tickets in advance are $12 for adults and $10 for kids. Tickets are available at the door for a price of $15. If you've never been to a Red Rock Wrestling show, trust me, it's worth the trip to PEI, no matter where you are in Atlantic, Canada. The crowds in Prince Edward Island, in Stratford specifically, are the most passionate wrestling fans I've ever heard. I've filmed quite a few shows over there, and I've actually seen kids in the audience cry when their hero, Cowboy Mike Hughes, wins or loses, depending on the situation. The emotion that comes out of that crowd is unbelievable. There's probably 600 or 700 people there every show. They sound like 10,000. The atmosphere they create is unmatched of anything I've ever seen. I've been to shows from here to New York, out to Los Angeles, and nothing comes close. I'm not saying that Halifax doesn't have great crowds, or Moncton doesn't have great crowds, or Sydney, or anywhere else really. It's just the crowd in Stratford is mainly kids, and it's incredible to see these kids react to their heroes, watch them cheer their heroes and boo the villains. It's just an amazing experience. So I highly recommend going and checking out this show on Friday night. And if you can't make this one, make plans to get to the next one. It's just incredible. And then the following night in Bathurst, New Brunswick, IHW, Innovative Hybrid Wrestling, comes to the KC Irving Regional Center. Bell time for that show is 7 p.m. On that particular card, the IHW Heavyweight Championship will be defended as the new champion Riddick Stone takes on former champion IHW Original Titus. Also on that card, two IHW TV title tournament quarter-finals are also scheduled to take place, with Marcus Burke taking on Julian Young and Dick Dern taking on James Liberty. Also scheduled to appear on this card, once again, the Monster Brody Steele. Now, if you've never seen Brody Steele in person, he is quite possibly the largest human being you will ever see. So it's something that you definitely don't want to miss. Jeez, I don't even know. It's been a long time, years, since I've been up to see an IHW show. But back when we used to go up all the time, it was a great experience. Those guys really put on a great show. It's another one that you don't want to miss. There's a lot of promotions in the Maritimes that, it is what it is, but there's a few that constantly book great talent, put on great shows, and IHW, Red Rock Wrestling, and the promotion I'm going to talk about next, Wrestlecentre, are three of those promotions in the Maritimes that really constantly put on great shows, use great talent. So if any of those promotions are coming to a town near you, you definitely want to check them out. The promotion I just mentioned, Wrestlecentre, has two huge shows lined up. Friday, June 5th at the Halifax Forum Multipurpose Centre, and Saturday, June 6th at the Kentville Centennial Arena. Both shows are Voltage television tapings. If you haven't checked it out, Wrestlecentre has a television show on Bell on demand. I don't know the link offhand, but all the episodes are linked off their website, Wrestlecentre.com. So make sure you check those out. Now, Wrestlecentre has been bringing in the top independent talent from all over the world. They've brought in Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, Colt Cabana, Samoa Joe. The list goes on and on. They had Mick Foley here earlier this year. Petey Williams was in last year. Who's who of independent wrestling from across the globe, Wrestlecentre has been bringing to Halifax. The show's no different. They're bringing in former WWE superstars Shelton Benjamin and John Morrison to Halifax on Friday, June 5th. And then Shelton Benjamin's not going to be in Kentville, but John Morrison is sticking around. He will be at the Kentville Centennial Arena on Saturday, June 6th. And on that show, he's going one-on-one with Titus. Shelton Benjamin in Halifax the night before will be going one-on-one with Julian Young, which should be an outstanding contest. Both great amateur wrestlers, so it's going to be exciting to see what Julian and Shelton Benjamin bring for the crowd on June 5th. Bell time again is 8 p.m. And of course, not only will you see Benjamin and Morrison, you'll get to see the rest of the amazing Wrestlecentre roster. Wrestling in Halifax hasn't been super popular since about the mid-2000s, 2006, 2007. It started to die off a little bit, and then the last year or so, Wrestlecentre has really brought back that passionate Halifax wrestling crowd. I always said that wrestling could always be huge in Halifax, and it is again. They're drawing constant crowds, 500 to 800 people, which for the last few years has been unheard of in Halifax. Wrestlecentre's really doing a good job bringing that fan base back. I've got all the advertising out of the way. I'm just noticing that I'm creeping up on 2 million views on my YouTube channel, which is amazing. YouTube.com/NewScott. The support I get off that YouTube channel is amazing. So I just want to thank everybody that views that channel. I've been trying to I've been trying to upload my entire Maritime Wrestling video library, which is a ridiculous amount of footage. It's going to take some time, but I'm getting there, and a lot of the files don't convert to YouTube very easily because they're so old, so I have to upload it somewhere else, then re-download it, then upload it back up to YouTube. It's a pretty long process, but it's fun, and I get a lot of messages from people thanking me for uploading the stuff that I upload, because a lot of the stuff no one's ever seen before. So I appreciate everybody that watches it, and I'm working now to put everything in playlists, to organize it a lot better for you guys so you have an easier time finding it. Before, it was just all over the place, and again, that'll take some time. I have like 700 or 800 videos already uploaded that I'm attempting to put into the correct playlists right now, so that'll be done soon though. So yeah, just thanks for your support on that. And I'm going to answer a question here just to close out this first audio commentary. This one's probably a little rough and hard to listen to, but I'm going to try and get it going a lot smoother. I'm eventually going to switch it over to a video commentary, because let's face it, who doesn't want to look at me talk? And I'm eventually going to switch it over to a video commentary. I just got to figure out the best way to do that. But for now, I don't even know what I'm going to put into the background of this when I upload it to YouTube. Maybe the posters of various shows or things that are going on. So it'll be a surprise to you, and probably me when I upload this and decide what to put in the background. I'm just not going to leave a black screen, but yeah, you don't really probably need to look at it. But yeah, so So I'm gonna answer a question I get a lot, and a lot of my pages have been getting a lot more of attention lately, and not a lot of people, and a lot of people have been asking me where the name New Scott comes from. So I'll answer that now. I've answered it before on my website, newscott.com, but not a lot of people are going to go, and I don't blame you, search through the interviews that I've done in the past to find out that answer. It's a lot of useless reading. So I'll tell you again now. Back in 2001, excuse me, back in 2001, I worked at Canadian Tire in Clayton Park, which is in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. I don't know where everyone's listening to this from. But that's where I'm from. I'm from Halifax, and I was working at Canadian Tire, and I went upstairs on break, and I came back down, and there was this enormous, oversized poster hanging off of the customer service desk. Now, I've been a wrestling fan since I was born. And but I didn't know anything about independent wrestling. I didn't really ever think about it. I didn't know where the guys came from that I saw on TV. I mean, I knew they trained and stuff, but I didn't really think about it. It didn't really like click in that there was anything else other than WWE or WWF at the time. I had heard of Grand Prix Wrestling, but again, I didn't really know what it was, and I didn't really pay any attention to it. So yeah, there was this giant oversized poster hanging off the customer service desk. So I picked it up and I looked at it. I'm like, whoa, this is a wrestling poster, and this show is happening at the Halifax Forum Multipurpose Center, and this was in May 2001. So I'm like, I'm gonna go check out this show. Now, at the time, I had purchased a WWE World Heavyweight title. So one of the big ones you see people carrying around all the time at shows now, but back then they weren't as common as they are now. So I'm going to go to this show, and I'm going to bring my belt. I'm going to show up 2 or 3 hours early, because I don't know what type of crowd is this. I'm expecting an enormous crowd, because that's all I'm used to. So I get there. I was probably 2 or 3 hours early. I was the only one there. I was standing outside with my belt, and this guy comes out and asks me where I got the belt. So I told him I bought it, and he takes it from me and asks if he could take it out back and show the guys. I'm like, can I come with it? He's like, nope. So I was like, yeah, sure, just bring it back. I don't know why I trusted this guy, but I did. And so he brings the belt, he takes the belt from me, brings it out back. God knows what they did to it. And then he brings it back like 20 minutes later and gives it to me. And yeah, so I continued to wait outside by myself. Now, it was a Grand Prix wrestling show. There was probably, there wasn't very many people there. There might have been 30 people in the audience that night, but it didn't stop the talent from putting on a tremendous show. Back then, the roster, there was a guy named Mad Dog McFly, which I thought his name was amazing because I'm a huge Back to the Future fan. If it doesn't come from Back to the Future, then it's a complete coincidence. Rene Dupree was on that card. Mentolo was on that card. Flesh Gordon was on that card. And I really don't remember who else was on that card other than one other person who I will mention in a minute. The guy that brought in that poster to Canadian Tire was Scott Savage. I didn't know who Scott was. I'd never heard of him at the time. He didn't wrestle as Scott Savage back then. I believe he was actually introduced as his real name, but I won't. He doesn't like giving that stuff out, so I won't spoil that for him. And yeah, Scott wrestled on that card. So I sat in the front row. I watched the show. I sat there with my belt, and after Flesh Gordon's match, he spotted the belt again, I guess, and he came over and he took it from me and he held it up, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. So I didn't know any better. So I just sat around. After the show, and the guy that originally came out front and took the belt from me was co-promoting those shows with Emile Dupree. That guy's name is Mike Zink. He came out and talked to me after the show, and then Scott came out and talked to me after the show, and he told me that they were going to be in town again next week to come back to the show. So I came back 3 weeks. I think they did 3 or 4 shows in a row. Just funny because they did the exact same show in Halifax on every occasion. It didn't change at all. I get doing the same show, or I get now doing the same show every night in different towns. But if you're coming back to the same town, I didn't really understand the concept of putting on the same show every night. And it was also funny. At the end of that show, a random drunk guy jumped up onto the apron during the main event, and Mad Dog beat the crap out of this guy. His face exploded. So yeah, fans, don't rush the ring. Not a good idea. But anyway, I came back the next week, and I started talking to Scott, and I got in a little bit better with Mike Zink, and then Mike told me that there was another show, a mainstream wrestling show. Now, I didn't know the difference. That was going to be in Bridgewater a few weeks later, and that I should come down and just tell the guy or girl at the gate, and they'd let me in. So I did, and they let me get in, and it was a mainstream wrestling show. Now, this was at the Bridgewater exhibition. There were 2,500 people there watching this particular show. It was crazy, and I was like, all right, this is the crowd I expected for the Grand Prix wrestling show. Now, this show got canceled about halfway through because fans started throwing rocks at the ring, and it was just ended up being a really bad situation. So I went back to look for Mike and thank him for telling me about the show and getting me in and all that. And again, I brought my belt because that's what I did. And he took the belt from me, and he hit Scott in the head with it. And Scott fell back on the floor, spilled his Pepsi, and the rest is pretty much history. After that show, I gave Scott a drive back home. I'd never hung out with Scott. I'd never really had a long conversation with him, but I somehow ended up driving him home from Bridgewater to Cole Harbour that night, and we just clicked. We talked the whole way home about wrestling. Then we started talking on MSN at the time, and he told me about other shows that were coming up with mainstream wrestling, and that I should come out. And the next mainstream show I went to was in October, but in between, I believe that Bridgewater show was like in July or August. I'm not sure. I'm going to say July. And in between those shows, I was looking at the newspaper. I saw an ad for something that was called Real Action Wrestling. Raw, it was there. I'm like, I originally thought, that's not original. But I saw the poster, I saw the guys, I'm like, whoa, these guys actually look like wrestlers. Not knocking anyone else, but you have an image in mind when you see a professional wrestler. And in this newspaper article, there was Brody Steele, he wrestled as Kingman at the time. There's Cowboy Mike Hughes. There's Duke McIsaac, big guy. Kurgan. I can't remember who else was in the picture, but they were all like big guys. I'm like, well, I'm gonna go check this show out. It was at Exhibition Park. There was about 1,500 people there, and it was amazing. I saw that Real Action Wrestling show, and I'm like, my first thought was like, how did I not hear of this stuff before? Where did it come from? Like, I was so upset that I hadn't heard of this stuff sooner. That show blew me away. And for whatever reason, I was sitting in the crowd watching the show, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, nobody's filming this. I'm like, why does nobody have a video camera? These guys should be able to see their stuff, and I don't know why, but I went out immediately after that show, bought a video camera, came back the next week or the week after. I think they ran every 2 weeks. I looked for I showed up super early so I could find the best seat in the house to film from. I originally I ran to the front row and looked up. I'm like, I don't think I can get every angle from here. So I went back and I sat in the lower bowl at Exhibition Park. I'm like, all right, this looks like a hard camera position. So I sat there, and every time Real Action Wrestling came back, I filmed the shows, and there was a message board. Real Action Wrestling had a message board. I used to like post on there saying that I filmed the shows. I wish I had a way to give guys the footage. And then one day I got an email from Cowboy Mike Hughes, who I didn't know at the time. I obviously knew he was I think he was the Real Action Wrestling champion at the time. He sent me an email asking him if there's any way I could send him the footage, and I was like, absolutely. So I copied it over to a VHS tape. I mailed it to PEI, and he said he liked it. And I'd come back every week, and I'd sit in the same seat at Exhibition Park, and I'd film the shows, and I would send him the tapes, and I don't know if he showed it to everybody else or whatever. And then Real Action Wrestling winded down for the year, but in the meantime, I also went to a mainstream wrestling show in, the date was October 17th, 2001. Now, this day is historic in the history of maritime wrestling. I had also started talking casually to Lincoln Steen online. He asked me if I wanted to come up and film the show in, I forget where the show was actually. It was in like Hants County. It was at a high school in Enfield or Lance or somewhere up there. And Scott had told him, I guess, I don't really know how he found out, that I was filming shows, and he asked me if I wanted to come up and film this show, because I guess none of those guys had a video camera either. This video camera was truly my in to professional wrestling in the Maritimes. If I didn't have this camera, I wouldn't be here now. And anyway, I showed up. I helped set up the ring. I helped set up chairs. He taught me this Lincoln Steen taught me the scientific, where can I put this? Lincoln Steen taught me the scientific proper way to the art of stacking chairs. And he was standing in the ring. I was standing outside of the ring. And he looks at me. He was like, you know, having you around is just like having a new Scott around. Referring to Scott Savage. Scott got into the wrestling pretty much the same way I did. He filmed shows. At this time, I started driving the wrestlers to and from the shows, and Scott had done the same thing back in the day. And he was like, having you around is just like having a new Scott around. Everybody laughed, ha ha ha. But unbeknownst to either one of us, that name stuck. 14 years later, I have ran shows under the name of New Scott. NewScott.com presents. I've been on a couple of different reality TV shows with that name. I have a website, NewScott.com. It's been everywhere. More people know me as New Scott than they do my real name, and it's not because I don't tell people. People just don't ask. People just like, hey, you're New Scott. I'm like, yep. And that's just where it comes from. It was October 17th, 2001, and Steen just said it casually, and it just stuck. And it's still around to this day. I've been refereeing the last few Wrestlecenter shows, and every time I come out, and it's amazing, and I can't love the fans any more than they do. They chant New Scott. I mean, like, I'm the referee at this show. I'm not a big deal. It's nothing, but the fact that they know who I am and they chant my name, it means the world to me. I mean, it's just awesome. But yeah, that's where the name New Scott comes from. I know I rambled there, and it's probably really hard to follow, and I apologize for being all over the place. But I'm just talking as things come into my mind. I promise the next one will hopefully be a lot more organized and easy to follow. But this was the very first one I've done of these in a long, long time. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you tune in again soon. If you liked it, click that like button for me. Feel free to share it around. And next time, I promise this will sound a whole lot better. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening, everybody.